Well, good evening and welcome to Tucker Carlson Tonight. An outrage bomb went off in official Washington last night, and by dawn today there was still a thick cloud of sanctimony and self-righteousness hanging over the city, choking out all normal life. The cause? Donald Trump Jr.'s meeting with a Russian lawyer last summer. Nobody here had ever seen anything like that before, or so they said. There was stiff competition, but Senator Richard Blumenthal of Connecticut may have won the day's Pious Indignation Award when he suggested that not only is Donald Trump Jr. a bad person, obviously, he may in fact be a Russian spy.
These emails are a textbook example and evidence of criminal intent, and that is potentially a violation of the Espionage Act. Yes, treason.
Yes, the Espionage Act, the very one that sent Julius and Ethel Rosenberg to the electric chair. They stole the plans to the atomic bomb. Don Trump talked to an attorney about adoption law, both massive threats to the physical and moral security of this country. CNN thought so. Its 3-hour morning show spent a total of 2 hours and 16 minutes discussing Russia today. That left just under 8 minutes for the new health care bill being debated in Congress and 2 minutes for sports. Pretty much nothing on anything else. 93% of airtime devoted to Russia. Keep in mind, that show is shot in New York, not in St. Petersburg. Mark Stein is an author and a columnist, and also, by the way, a Canadian, so he knows what a moral frenzy looks like. He joins us tonight. Mark, I've never seen liberals so mad. You would have thought someone lit a cigarette in a restaurant or forgot to recycle. I mean, that level of rage.
You have to take this seriously, Tucker. That Trump punk kid is heading for the electric chair. If it's good enough for the Rosenbergs, it's good enough for this kid.
Needless to say, I agree, as a responsible newsman.
That's right. Look, what's interesting here is actually the right has met the left halfway on this. I have an awful lot of respect for Charles Krauthammer,
yes.
But when he says that Donald Trump Jr.'s words, "I love it," in the email is evidence of collusion, the guy he's colluding with is a washed-up pop music publicist. He was the publicist for John Denver in the 1980s, not the American publicist, not the British publicist. He was the Australian publicist for John Denver in the 1980s, since when he's progressed to becoming the publicist for an untalented Azerbaijani pop star who happens to be the son of a very minor Z-list oligarch. Now, I'm sure you, like I, follow the Azerbaijani hit parade closely as CNN does. It's 17 with a bullet on CNN's morning show. I'm sure you follow the Azerbaijani hit parade super closely, but if you were going to collude, I'm not sure even under the Espionage Act, it's possible to bring up prosecution for someone colluding with the publicist for an Azerbaijani pop singer. I've read the statute, I can't find that in there.
But, I mean, what you've described is a crime against good taste, colluding with the Australian publicist for the late John Denver.
Right.
But I wonder how...
Sunshine on my shoulder makes CNN's morning show very happy.
Indeed it does. But I wonder how much of the outrage is real, and is there anything at the bottom of this? Do the Trump people have anything to worry about?
I don't think so. I think the danger here, well, it's really a clash between two cultures, Tucker, because one of the disfiguring aspects of American political life is that it's very reactive. It's very rear-view mirror.
Yes.
So everybody's extremely happy. Then nobody can prevent 9/11, but we're happy to investigate it for years afterwards, have a blue ribbon commission, issue a 400-page report, years and years and years of investigation. Now they want to do the same thing with a meeting that the president's son, a perfectly legal meeting, held with the president's son, held with a Russian lawyer. Now, that's reactive and legalistic and pointless. Putin, on the other hand, is a great improviser. So even if this lawyer had no links to the Kremlin 2 weeks ago, she most certainly has links to the Kremlin now, because she's in line for the Order of Lenin, or whatever they have these days, simply for sowing this amount of confusion and chaos in American life, which actually is...
You're making, that's the point right there. That's such a smart point that nobody is making, which is, if you think Putin's goal is to destabilize American politics,
right,
aren't we offering it up to him, that opportunity, the greatest opportunity ever offered to him?
Yes, it's win-win either way. And we know, by the way, that this is what's happening here is just the routine interaction that goes on everywhere across the planet in the last 20 years, since the collapse of the Soviet Union. People who were Soviet commissars 25 years ago have mysteriously become multi-billionaires. And you run into them all over the planet. In London, they own football clubs and newspapers, the respectable ones. The unrespectable ones have lawyers whose helicopters mysteriously crash a quarter of a mile before landing at the oligarch's English castle that he bought. And the oligarchs complain all the time that they have no idea whether the people who purport to be influential in the West. I had an oligarch said to me, I mean, this is, that's a great conversational gambit, by the way, if you want to go into a singles bar, Tucker, and say, this Russian oligarch said to me the other day, because it shows the chick you're a person of influence and collusion right there. But this oligarch said to me a couple of years ago, the first thing that happens when you land in a Western city is people are always claiming they can perform services for you. They tell you, oh, you know, I'm the third son of a Viscount, or I'm Elton John's accountant. And you have no way of knowing which of all these people who claim to be able to perform services for you actually can do. We have here a situation where an Azerbaijani pop publicist is claiming to be the cutout between Vladimir Putin and Donald Trump. Now, I'm all for deep cover, but if it is the case that Vladimir Putin knows enough to hire the publicist of an absolutely untalented Azerbaijani pop singer, and I have no disrespect, by the way, I don't want a hate crimes prosecution, the Azerbaijani entry won the Eurovision Song Contest in the year 2011. So I'm all, I support Azerbaijani pop music. I'm all for it, but I don't want Azerbaijani pop publicists diversifying into cutouts between Putin and Trump, because they're unlikely to be very good at it.
The cast of characters is unbelievable. It's like closing time in the sleaziest bar in Stade.
That's right. It is. It's the closest.
Somebody else.
It's the sleaziest bar in Baku, which I think is the. If I'm right, that's the capital of Azerbaijan. Azerbaijan, I never quite buy, because it ought to be. It's Muslim, so it ought to be a Stan. But all the Stan names are taken, so it had to become a Jan. But if you're in Baku and you want to become a pop singer, a sleazy bar in Baku is a good place to find a couple of Baku singers, Tucker. There we are. Mission accomplished. You don't get this coverage on the CNN Morning Show.
No, you don't, and that's why we're winning. Thanks, Mark. Appreciate it.
Thanks, Tucker.
Well, Maine State Representative Scott Hammond is drawing unwelcome attention tonight after he posted a violent, I think it's fair to say deranged, tirade against the president on Facebook. Representative Hammond said he was just having a sarcastic exchange with an old friend when he said, among other things, this, and we're quoting, "You people are destroying America. Some of us are educated and actually follow current events. 100% of intelligent Americans agree that Trump is a complete loser. Go back to clinging to your guns because you're afraid." Expletive deleted here. See, it's not only Trump supporters who can talk like complete a-holes. As long as that's what's coming out of that side, then I'll match you dumb expletives word for word. Trump is a half-term president at most. Here's the key point, especially if I ever get within 10 feet of that expletive. Just a joke with an old friend. Howie Carr is a radio show host in Boston. He joins us tonight. Howie, this guy has got to be a right-wing evangelical because he's threatening violence, and that's the only group that does that, right?
Yeah, Tucker, why can't we all just get along, as Rodney King used to say? You know, this just shows the double standard here. This was turned up by a New Hampshire radio talk show host named Keith Hansen, and he publicized this. And the silence from the Maine Democratic Party has been deafening. The mainstream media in Maine didn't really want to confront this guy. It appears the Portland Press Herald put out a headline on a story finally today. South Portland lawmakers calls President Trump a complete loser and makes a threat. Well, he threatened to kill him Tucker, you just read it. I mean, that would be like if the Dallas Morning News on November 23rd, 1963 ran a headline, Lee Harvey Oswald calls President Kennedy a complete loser and makes a threat.
I'm surprised the headline wasn't right-wingers criticize South Portland representative, because that's usually the way they.
Well, that's in the second paragraph. That's in the second paragraph, Tucker. You know, this is what's been going on all along. They've been talking about deranged veterans, Christian militias. They're the ones that are Donald Trump supporters in pickup trucks with beer on their breath are committing all these hate crimes, which all turn out to be hoaxes. But look at all the violence is being perpetrated by these Bernie bros. This guy, Scott Hammond, this state rep, he's a Bernie bro. And, Hodgkinson, the guy from Illinois who shot up the congressional baseball practice, he was a Bernie volunteer. And the Washington Post, you saw the story, Tucker, over the weekend. Yeah. They had the temerity to write a story about some right-wing, obscure talk show host in Belleville, Illinois, and basically made it sound like this guy who watched Rachel Maddow every night was getting his cues from this retired cop from East St. Louis. It was preposterous.
Well, it always is. But what's shocking in this case is that the main Democratic Party, and there are some, I think, reasonable people still in that party in Maine, hasn't said anything about it. I mean, the guy, I don't think we're misquoting him. He implied that he wanted to commit violence against the president. Like, they didn't disavow that?
Yeah, no, they didn't. I'm on in a lot of Maine. Most of the Maine stations carry me in the afternoon on my radio show. One of my listeners said he called up the office of the Democratic House Speaker in Augusta, Maine, and said, what are you going to do about this? And, some flack called him back from the office and said, well, the Speaker is on vacation, and so she won't be able to comment. But, I mean, Tucker, look back to last year when David Duke, I mean, you can't get much more obscure than that guy. Yeah. He's down in Louisiana. He was a state rep for a couple of terms. He ran for governor once. He's a Klansman. Every time he put out a blog posting about Donald Trump, every Republican in the United States who's in elected office, down to county commissioner and tree warden, had to be called out. What do you think of David Duke? You know? What about this guy? Has anyone asked Chuck Schumer about this guy?
Well, it's not a defense of David Duke to say. I don't remember Duke ever threatening violence, physical violence, against Barack Obama.
No. What would happen, Tucker, if a Republican state rep, no matter how obscure, had said something like this about Barack Obama? Yeah. His political career would be over. There was a guy in Presque Isle in the northern part of Maine. He was a state rep, a Republican, a couple of years ago. He made some untoward comments about Barack Obama when he was still president, and that was a major story in all of the Maine newspapers for weeks. They tried to strip him of his committee assignments in Augusta. They tried to get him to resign from the legislature, and now again the silence is deafening here.
And it ended his political career. And this guy threatening violence. It says a lot about the wackos in our midst. Howie, thanks a lot for joining us.
Thank you. Thanks, Tucker.
Great to see you tonight. Chelsea Clinton is the proud author of 3 books. Or is she? Up next, we'll tell you about the plagiarism lawsuit she is facing for her latest volume. Fascinating. Plus, professors at Evergreen College are demanding a colleague be fired for the sin of appearing on this show. Whoa, we've got details up ahead.